Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your mothers would practically build themselves. Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv. Today, well, we are headed over to a place called Arsenal Hill. There was an explosion many years ago in Salt Lake City where some powder magazines went up and devastated a hilltop, and there were 4 people that were killed. So we are going to go look at some of the areas connected with the explosion on Arsenal Hill. So stick with Mad Dog Merv today. You're going to learn some local history that a lot of folks don't know about, and of course I'm going to tie it to something else. A little bit of school history and a little bit of family history, so stick around. So in the United States in the spring of 1876, you had Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone. Here's his first message, and well, later on in the summer you had George Armstrong Custer and what happened at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Also in 76, the first half of 76, you had this guy here, Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson, who were sworn in as sheriffs of Dodge City. Salt Lake City in 1876 was becoming a booming town. And here you can see, and this was because of the railroad coming in 1870 down to Salt Lake City. You could get goods and services and people out west a whole lot faster, and Salt Lake really started to boom. So this is looking north. This is also looking north on Main Street. You see the building up ahead there? Well, that is the arsenal that was built in the late 1860s. Many cities back then would have all their gunpowder supply and whatnot kept in one place, and well, here is the Salt Lake City Arsenal. The hill that it's located on was originally called Prospect Hill, although that was changed to, uncreatively, Arsenal Hill. And here's a great shot of it from the Salt Lake Tabernacle. You can see that it's up above pretty much everything else in the city. Eventually this hill was renamed Capitol Hill, and that's how we know it today, is as Capitol Hill. Kind of interesting. But these pictures from about the 1875-76 era. This is a great picture because straight ahead, kind of to the right, is North Temple Street. This is the confluence of the City Creek and I believe Mill Creek down in the area of the Jordan River. But you can see off to the left, way out there, is a building. That's the Arsenal. Great shot. So these stills are taken from a model that was made of part of downtown Salt Lake City in 1870. And this shows the Arsenal up on the hill. It shows some of the other areas of town. This is in about 1/700 scale. It's an amazing model that sat at the LDS Church History Library for many years. But you can see the Arsenal there at the top of Main Street. It actually burnt down in 1870. Across the street was the match factory. I don't know if it had anything to do with it or not, but anyway. This is another view of that area looking up towards the north. Now, off to the right-hand side, they had 4 bunkers. A little bit further east and to the north, that these 4 bunkers that they kept the powder in. So that was kind of a separate little area. This is the top of Main Street, or what used to be the top of Main Street at 2nd North. And that part of the road didn't exist. Actually, from right here over to this little sign over here was just kind of straight through over to Center Street. So we're going to go down Center Street, but you can see off in the distance a building, and that is the Daughter of the Utah Pioneers Museum. Let's take a closer look. Just past Center Street, coming up on Arsenal Hill. Here in the foreground is Center Street and an irrigation ditch. This is looking kind of to the south and west of where we just drove by. So this is on Arsenal Hill. Back in, I believe this is an 1875 picture here taken, and you can see the tabernacle just off to the left, the very extreme left. You can just barely see part of the tabernacle. So it's pretty close to Temple Square, where this whole this whole area was. And here it is today. That same area. Center Street is off to the right here. We're looking a little bit more south than southwest, but you kind of get the general idea of how it's changed.
The Daughters of the Utah Pioneer Museum back here. Okay, that's where the original arsenal was, but the bunkers would have been on the other side of the state capitol. So we're going to go over and see where that is.
Before we do, here is the Daughters of the Utah Pioneer Museum off to the right, looking south, which would be down Arsenal Hill today. Wow, what a difference.
So here is the Capitol on the north side, and so it was described as the northeast part of Arsenal Hill. You can see Ensign Peak straight up there. So probably out in this area somewhere would be where the bunkers were. Give you some idea where that is to where the actual arsenal was, which is over the hill that way just a little bit.
In the early part of 1876, a DuPont employee responsible for one of the magazines had found its iron-plated doors pockmarked with bullets. He tried to warn city officials about the shooter's reckless behavior, but to no avail. This is not one of the bunkers. This is actually from the same time period, but it's located back east at one of the old forts back there. But it gives you some idea of what they looked like. Apparently there were two of them that were built with rocks, and two of them were built with bricks, and they had those iron-covered doors over wood. Anyway, the stage is now set. You kind of understand the area, the terrain, and where these powder magazines or bunkers were located there on Arsenal Hill. On the afternoon of Wednesday, April 5th, 1876, just a couple of days before conference was to start in Salt Lake City, a couple of late teenage boys, Frank Hill and Charlie Richardson, had been grazing cattle on the east side of Ensign Peak and were on their way back home. One of the boys carried a rifle, as they had seen some game birds in the area just the day before. They were last seen in the area of the arsenal. It is not known exactly what happened, but at a few minutes before 5 p.m., an explosion rocked the entire city, followed about 47 seconds later by 3 more explosions. 45 tons of explosives had just gone up on Arsenal Hill. An estimated 500 tons of debris was displaced by these explosions. Panes of glass were shattered all over the city. Within a 2-mile radius, pretty much every pane of glass was gone. 1,000 panes of glass alone on the Salt Lake Tabernacle were blown out. Shingleton's Saloon, which was right across from a 115-pound boulder, crashed through the ceiling, right between two guys who were having a drink at a table, right through the floor, and embedded itself 20 feet in the dirt beneath. There were several other near misses, but there were some fatalities. 3-year-old Joseph Radin, who was located some distance southeast of the explosion, had a 5-pound boulder blown completely through his chest, killing him instantly. Mary Jane Van Natta, who was 3/4 of a mile directly west of the bunkers, down in a lower part of the valley, was hit, and she was with child, and she was hit and killed.
So this is the neighborhood where Mary Jane Van Natta was hit by that rock and killed. And to my knowledge, none of these homes date from that time period, but it gives you some kind of an idea of what the neighborhood was like. Again, some of these homes are probably late 1800s, but I don't know about 1876. So, to give you some idea how close we are to the Capitol, you can see the Capitol up there. And probably on the far side of the Capitol is where those bunkers would have been. So, yeah, kind of give you an idea of the orientation of where we're at.
It took several minutes for things to settle down, but there were people in the city who started up the hill to see what had happened, and they found pieces and chunks of the two boys. Now, in a tie-in that we did with a piece, about a month or so ago, the 20th Ward Schoolhouse, which eventually became Lowell Elementary, the same block. Anyway, this building was around. It was built in like 1865. And it sustained major damage to the walls. They didn't have to tear it down, but of course all the windows were blown out. This was southeast of the explosion. So in another tie-in on a story that we're going to do, and a personal tie-in, this gentleman here, prominent citizen of Salt Lake City, Francis James Polkinghorne Pascoe. Well, he lived not too far to the southwest from Arsenal Hill. Now, he is my great-great-grandfather, and he was a metallurgist, so he was into smelting and things such as that. This is the 10-bedroom mansion that he had built on the corner of 2nd North and 2nd West, and this thing was built in about 1874, so it was fairly new at the time. Francis and his wife Maria had a rather large family, and like I said, he was a metallurgist. He was responsible for some of the works that they did up in the Warm Springs area of Salt Lake. We'll talk about his story some other time, but suffice it to say, he was a prominent Salt Lake resident. And here on the map, circled is the area, this is again 1870, so his home isn't built yet, but circled is the area where his mansion was, and you can see it is just down from Arsenal Hill. So it must have taken, a bit of damage, that particular mansion.
All right, so where this, the Wendell Apartments is, well, this is where Francis Pascoe's mansion used to sit. Okay, so this was built in 1874, 2 years before the explosion. I want you to notice right there where the state capitol is. So you can imagine that the shock wave obviously had to have affected this part of the city. And while I have not been able to find anything in Francis Pascoe's writings about the damage to the mansion, obviously there had to be some.
So something that's very ironic about these Wendell Apartments is this is where, when I first moved out from home at age 18, this is my very first place I lived, up on the 3rd floor. Isn't that amazing? And I didn't even know that it was my great-great-grandfather's property at one time. Well, thank you folks for joining us. Hope you learned a little bit about the explosion on Arsenal Hill in 1876, and we'll see you again real soon.